Hey everyone, and welcome to Inside the Squared Circle, the show where I, ZJ, look at different wrestlers, promotions, or anything else in the pro wrestling world and share the history of it from beginning all the way up to the present. So, as you can see by the title, today we're going to be looking at the masked luchador, Sin Cara. Let's begin. Luis Ignacio, your magazine on January 30th, and a press conference was held in Mexico City on February 24th, and was where his new name, Sin Cara, was revealed. One interesting fact is WWE had already offered him a contract back in 2007, and in December of that same year, but due to obligations with CMLL, he couldn't sign at the time. It's said that the likes of Dean Malenko, Paul London, and Rey Mysterio were the ones that pushed for him to be offered a WWE contract. Also, in March of 2008, Sin Cara contacted TNA Wrestling to see if they'd be interested in having him work for their promotion, but his previous obligations got in the way of a deal. But now, getting back to when he did actually get signed by WWE, on March 7th of 2011, the first promo for Sin Cara's debut in WWE aired on Raw, Primo, in Champaign, Illinois at a WWE live event. Interesting to note that he used different entrance music at this live event than he would use on TV. Odd also because his entrance music he would eventually use was also being used in the promos hyping his debut. But moving on, and attacking Jack Swagger that same week on SmackDown. That next week, on the April 11th episode of Raw, Sin Cara had his first televised match in WWE, with a winning effort against Primo, and on the following week's episode of Raw, he teamed up with John Cena to defeat Alex Riley and the WWE champion at the time, The Miz, in a tag team match. However, on April 25th, Sin Cara was drafted to SmackDown as part of the 2011 WWE Draft. On SmackDown, Sin Cara had a few minor feuds with the likes of Chavo Guerrero, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase. Things wouldn't pick up for him till July 17th at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view event. He was one of the participants in the World Heavyweight Championship contract match, but failed to win it. During the match, Sheamus powerbombed Sin Cara through a ladder, and he was taken out of the match with a storyline injury. But Sin Cara would actually be suspended for 30 days for violation of WWE's wellness policy. The original Sin Cara returned to action on August 12th at a live event in Tacoma, Washington. However, Jorge Arias continued to play the role of Sin Cara on TV. Not only did Jorge Arias perform as Sin Cara, he also turned the character heel by attacking Daniel Bryan on the August 30th edition of SmackDown. On the September 16th episode of SmackDown, the original Sin Cara returned to confront Jorge Arias, and thus made it known that an imposter Sin Cara had performing in the previous weeks. The next few weeks involved the imposter Sin Cara attacking and getting involved with the original Sin Cara's matches. On the September 30th edition of SmackDown, the imposter Sin Cara debuted a black attire to distinguish himself from the original blue attire Sin Cara. This then called for the two superstars being called Sin Cara Negro, black, and Sin Cara Azul, blue. The imposter Sin Cara claimed he was going to steal the original Sin Cara's identity, just as how the imposter's Mistico identity had been stolen from him by the original Sin Cara. This led to the two having a match at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, with Sin Cara Azul picking up the win on October 2nd. This led to the two having a mask vs mask match on October 21st episode of SmackDown. That was fittingly in Mexico City, with the original Sin Cara winning and the imposter being unmasked. This wasn't the first time the imposter Sin Cara had been unmasked though. At a SmackDown Live event on September 28th, before a match with Yoshitatsu, the imposter ripped up a sign and his t-shirt and unmasked, showing that he was the imposter. But getting back to the storyline, the imposter Sin Cara changed his name to Hunico and aligned himself with Camacho, and continued to feud with Sin Cara. Both men were on opposite teams at the Survivor Series 10-man tag match. Sin Cara was injured during the match and was out of action for 6 months. Sin Cara made his return on May 19th of 2012 at a live event in Florence, South Carolina. He made his TV return on the June 1st episode of SmackDown, defeating Heath Slater, and would go on to defeat Hunico the following Raw, and revived their feud. The two would finish it by having a match at No Way Out on June 17th, with Sin Cara coming out on top. Afterwards, Sin Cara continued to wrestle matches and was involved in both the Money in the Bank ladder match and a fatal four-way match for the Intercontinental Championship, but failed to win both. Things began to pick up when he teamed up with Rey Mysterio. The two competed in a number of matches, but never were able to win the tag team championships. Sin Cara would continue to be taken off TV every so often due to injuries, and his last WWE match was on October 19th of 2013 in Monterrey, Mexico. He announced that he would continue to wrestle in January of 2014, but not in WWE. It was announced on March 27th by WWE that they had released Sin Cara of his contract the day prior. According to PEW, Rey Mysterio had said in an interview after Sin Cara's release that he believed Sin Cara could become the next Latino face in WWE. He said that Sin Cara didn't work hard enough to adapt to the WWE style of wrestling, and he refused to learn English. He also said that if Sin Cara had worked harder in these two different areas, that things could have been different for him in WWE. Sin Cara himself had said before that he had no interest in learning the English language, and he didn't feel that it was important to know during matches. He also blamed WWE for not letting him wrestle the style he did in Mexico, and these two things may be what led him to botching or messing up a number of moves. Sin Cara claimed he owned the Sin Cara character, but there was some legal trouble with WWE, and the two settled it in court. Ever since then, Hunico has been competing as Sin Cara, and in July of 2014, he was sent to NXT. WWE's development territory, and formed a tag team with another luchador, Kalisto. They called their team the Lucha Dragons, and were able to win the NXT Tag Team Championships on September 11th of that year. The two made their way to the main roster on February 17th, 2015 on an episode of Main Event, and they made their Raw debut on March 30th. So, all's well in WWE, but what happened to the original Sin Cara after his release? Well, in February of 2014, he signed a contract with AAA, or this name down here, don't ask me to pronounce it, which is another wrestling promotion in Mexico, but smaller than CMLL. He was under a no-compete clause until May, so for the first while in AAA, Sin Cara didn't wrestle any matches. But on June 5th, it was revealed that Sin Cara would compete in AAA under the name Mais Tesis. This was exclusive to AAA, and Sin Cara would continue to use the Sin Cara name outside of the promotion. 2 days later, on June 7th, Sin Cara, or Mais Tesis, made his in-ring debut in AAA. In addition to working for AAA, Sin Cara has continued to work for other promotions, and is hopefully doing better. As you can see, Sin Cara's had a pretty interesting career. Starting in Mexico, going to Japan, going back to Mexico, then going to the United States, and ultimately winding up back in Mexico. It's been an interesting ride. Where will he go from here? Maybe he'll stay in Mexico, go back to Japan, or even go back to the United States. I do kind of doubt that last one, however, at least with WWE, since Unico is playing the role of him now, and Unico speaks English and is adapted to WWE style of wrestling. But never say never. On the topic of saying things, I'd love for you to leave in the comments what topic you'd like me to cover in a future episode of Inside the Squared Circle. It could be a wrestler, company, or just anything in the pro wrestling world. Leave your idea below, and it may be turned into a future episode. Speaking of future episodes, you can subscribe to stay in the loop on all Inside the Squared Circle episodes, and if you enjoyed this video, I would encourage you to give it a thumbs up and share this video. It would really help me out. But until next time, this has been ZJ of Tap Out Corner, and I'll see you later.